The morning air outside the glass towers of Fulton and Row corporate headquarters shimmered in the late summer heat, but inside the lobby it was all marble, chilled air, and carefully curated smiles. The kind of place where people's shoes clicked like metronomes across the polished floor, and their eyes slid past anyone who wasn't dressed in a suit that cost more than a week's wages. The revolving doors spun open, and in stepped a man in a faded navy polo, black cargo pants, and scuffed sneakers. In his hands, he carried two large cardboard boxes, each taped neatly and marked with bold black letters. His skin glistened from the sun outside, and his posture was the relaxed, unhurried kind of confident that often got mistaken for not caring. The receptionist, a young woman with a headset and a perfect blowout, glanced up, saw the delivery company logo on his shirt, and immediately lowered her voice to a co-worker beside her. They exchanged smirks that weren't meant to be kind. The man didn't flinch. He stepped up to the desk and, in a calm baritone that carried just enough authority to make the two women pause, said, "I have a delivery for the executive floor. Needs to be signed in person." One of them sighed as if he'd just asked her to move a mountain. "You can leave it here. I'll have someone bring it up," she said, eyes already returning to her screen. The man shook his head slowly. "It's sensitive. Has to be handed directly to the recipient." Her smile thinned. "Look, I don't know what kind of special treatment you're used to, but up there, you need clearance." She gestured vaguely toward the security turnstiles like they were the gates of heaven. "And I'm guessing you don't have it." That earned a chuckle from the tall, broad-shouldered security guard leaning against the wall. The delivery man simply set the boxes down beside him, reached into his back pocket, and pulled out a slim leather wallet. He flipped it open, revealing a laminated ID with a magnetic pass strip and the unmistakable logo of the very company whose headquarters he was standing in. "Clearance enough?" he asked, one eyebrow raised. For a second, the receptionist's expression faltered, but the security guard's laugh cut through the air. "Buddy, those can be faked. I could buy one of those online for $20. A couple of people in line behind him, well-dressed men in sharp ties, laughed quietly. He didn't respond, just pocketed the ID, picked up the boxes again, and walked toward the turnstiles. The guard stepped forward, palm up. "No access without an escort, pal. Rules are rules." The man stopped, looked at him for a long moment, and then, without a word, set the boxes down once more. His silence wasn't nervous. It was measured, deliberate. It had the faintest trace of someone who knew exactly how this would play out, just not yet. A few more people were watching now, some peering from behind their phones, ready to record if the scene turned messy. The elevator doors chimed open across the lobby, and a small group of executives stepped out. Among them was Trevor Langston, the chief operating officer, his cufflinks catching the light as he adjusted his sleeve. He spotted the man instantly and frowned. "Why is this guy standing here like it's his living room? Is there a problem?" The receptionist jumped to answer. "He says he needs to deliver something to the top floor, but he doesn't have clearance." Trevor's eyes flicked over the man, taking in the cargo pants, the worn shoes, the delivery company logo. A smirk pulled at his lips. "I think we can handle our own mail. Thanks." He reached for one of the boxes. The man stepped slightly to block him. "Not without a signature," he said evenly. The smirk deepened. "You've got to be kidding me. Do you know who I am?" The man tilted his head. Do you know who I am?" The words were calm, but carried something underneath. Something that made Trevor's brow crease for half a second before he brushed it off. "You're wasting my time. Security." At that moment, a voice echoed from the mezzanine above. "Is that him?" Heads turned. A woman in a tailored suit was descending the grand staircase, her heels striking marble with the authority of someone who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. She was flanked by two other executives, both looking uneasy. When she reached the bottom step, she ignored everyone else and walked straight to the delivery man. "Sir," she said with genuine warmth, "we've been expecting you. I'm so sorry for the welcome you received." The receptionist's jaw dropped. Trevor's smirk vanished. Even the security guard straightened. The man finally smiled, just a small one, and handed her a digital pad. She signed without hesitation, then gestured toward the private elevator at the far end of the lobby. "Please, come with me. The board is ready." And just like that, the man with the boxes was walking past everyone who had laughed at him moments before, stepping into the elevator that only the highest-level executives used. As the doors closed, the whispers began. The elevator hummed softly as it rose, the numbers on the panel blinking upward. But the woman beside him didn't waste the ride on small talk. She stood straight, hands folded lightly, eyes forward. There was no awkwardness, only the quiet respect of someone who knew she was in the presence of a man who deserved it. When the doors slid open, they stepped into a hallway lined with frosted glass offices and modern art on the walls. The carpet muted their footsteps as they approached a set of double doors at the far end. Two assistants leapt to their feet as they arrived, pulling the doors open in unison. Inside, the boardroom stretched like something from a glossy magazine, a massive mahogany table, a panoramic view of the city skyline. Leather chairs so new they still had the scent of the tannery. Around the table sat a dozen of the most powerful people in the company, men and women who controlled contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Every one of them rose when the delivery man entered. Some smiled nervously. Others looked almost apologetic. Trevor had followed them up, though his steps were a little less confident now. He lingered near the door, unsure if he was supposed to be in the room at all. The man set the boxes gently on the table and peeled away the tape from the first one. Inside, nestled in protective foam, were thick binders, each embossed with the company logo and another insignia none of the lower floor employees would have recognized. A golden crest with a shield and laurel wreath. He began handing them out, moving with the ease of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Each board member accepted theirs with two hands, murmuring thanks. When the last binder was passed out, the woman in the suit, whose nameplate read Evelyn Ward, CEO, cleared her throat. "For those of you who don't know, this is Mr. Elijah Brooks." She let the name hang in the air for a moment, as if expecting it to land with weight. Judging by the subtle widening of several pairs of eyes, it did. "Messr. Brooks is not here to deliver mail. He is here as the lead auditor from the Federal Corporate Compliance Division. He has been contracted by our shareholders to conduct a full, independent review of our operations." The silence that followed was almost physical. Trevor's face drained of color. The receptionist's laughter from earlier echoed faintly in his ears like a ghost. Elijah glanced toward the door, where Trevor stood frozen, and for the briefest moment their eyes met. There was no gloating in Elijah's gaze, no sharp edge of revenge, just that same measured calm as before, the kind that said, "I don't need to raise my voice to show you who I am." Evelyn continued, "Mr. Brooks has full access to every department, every file, every transaction. He answers only to the shareholders and the federal committee that commissioned this review. Any attempt to obstruct him will be treated as obstruction of a federal investigation." She didn't look at Trevor when she said it, but she didn't have to. The weight of the statement settled over the room like a lead blanket. Elijah spoke for the first time since entering the boardroom. "I don't care about rumors, reputations, or titles," he said, his voice low but steady. "I care about truth, accuracy, and accountability. I've seen too many companies fall because people thought the rules didn't apply to them. My job isn't to take sides. My job is to uncover the facts." He closed the second box and slid it to Evelyn. "Everything I need to start is in there. My team will be here tomorrow morning." With that, he turned to leave. The walk back through the hallway was different now. Assistants who had barely glanced up before now stepped aside respectfully. In the elevator, Evelyn glanced at him. "You handled that well." Most people would have called them out right there in the lobby. Elijah's smile was small but knowing. Sometimes, letting people reveal themselves is the better strategy. When the elevator reached the lobby, all conversation stopped. The receptionist's eyes darted between him and Trevor, who had returned moments earlier looking like he'd swallowed glass. Elijah adjusted his grip on the empty box and headed toward the doors. Just before stepping outside, he paused and looked back, not to speak, but simply to meet the eyes of every person who had written him off the moment he walked in. No anger, no smugness, just a silent message: next time, think twice. Outside, the sunlight was just as warm as when he'd arrived, but the air felt different. The whispers in the lobby would travel fast. By the end of the day, everyone in the building would know exactly who the delivery man really was. And by the end of the month, some of them would wish they had treated him with the respect they gave strangers in suits. The next morning, the sun had barely risen when Elijah Brooks stepped out of a black SUV in front of Fulton and Rowe. He wasn't carrying boxes this time, just a slim briefcase and a calm expression that masked the storm of work about to come. Flanking him were 3 members of his audit team, each dressed in professional black attire, eyes sharp, carrying laptops and thick document folders. They moved like a unit, and the moment they entered the building, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations dimmed, footsteps slowed, and the same receptionist from yesterday sat up straighter in her chair. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks," she said quickly, her voice almost too bright. He gave her a polite nod and kept walking. By the time they reached the executive floor, news of his arrival had already reached every department. The boardroom had been cleared for his team's use, and Evelyn Ward herself greeted them at the door. She handed Elijah a small stack of security clearance cards, access to everything from payroll servers to the restricted archive vault. "Anything you need," she said quietly. "No red tape." Elijah's investigation started fast. Within the first 2 hours, they'd uncovered irregularities in the expense reports, lavish dinners billed to, client entertainment, where no clients had been present, overseas business trips that looked suspiciously like private vacations. By lunch, his team had traced a series of unaccounted cash withdrawals totaling more than $500,000, all authorized by a handful of high-ranking executives. But the most damning discovery came from an unassuming server tucked away in the IT department. On it, his tech specialist found encrypted files that, once opened, revealed a complex system of kickbacks, contracts awarded to certain vendors at inflated prices, with portions quietly funneled into private accounts. The paper trail was messy but undeniable, and one name kept showing up in the approvals: Trevor Langston. By mid-afternoon, Elijah requested a private meeting with Evelyn. "It's worse than I thought," he told her, sliding the evidence across the table. "Langston's not just involved, he's orchestrating most of it, and he's got at least 3 others covering for him." Evelyn's face hardened. "Can we prove it?" Elijah nodded. "Absolutely. But I'm not done yet." Word of the investigation's scope spread like wildfire. The same employees who had snickered in the lobby avoided Elijah's gaze in the halls. Trevor, once loud and confident, was suddenly quieter, his laughter forced when it came at all. Still, he clung to a thread of arrogance, until Elijah called a full staff meeting 3 days later. When the entire company gathered in the main conference hall, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Elijah stood at the front, a large projector screen behind him. He began without preamble, clicking through slides that laid out the evidence in stark, irrefutable detail: names, dates, amounts, account numbers. The room grew quieter with every slide, until the only sound was the soft hum of the projector. Finally, he stopped on a slide with Trevor's photo and a list of his offenses. "These are not mistakes," Elijah said evenly. "They are deliberate acts of fraud, theft, and betrayal, not just of your shareholders, but of every honest employee in this company." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Trevor's face was pale, his jaw tight. Then Elijah turned to the side, where 2 uniformed federal agents had been waiting. "Trevor Langston," he said, his voice carrying through the hall, "you are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and obstruction of a federal investigation." The agents stepped forward, cuffing Trevor in front of everyone. Gasps and shocked whispers filled the room. Trevor sputtered, "You can't do this," but Elijah's calm gaze silenced him. "The rules apply to everyone," he said quietly, "even to the ones who think they're above them." As the agents led Trevor out, the sound of his shoes scraping against the polished floor echoed through the hall. No one moved. No one spoke. Every eye was fixed on the man they had once seen laughing in the lobby. The door closed behind him with a muted thud, and silence lingered for a long moment. Then Elijah stepped forward, his voice calm but resonant, filling the room without effort. "Yesterday, some of you saw me walk into this building with a pair of cardboard boxes," he began. "You looked at the clothes I was wearing, the job you assumed I had, and you decided you knew exactly who I was. Some of you laughed. Some ignored me completely. Some even went out of their way to block me." He paused, scanning the room. A few people dropped their eyes, suddenly fascinated by the floor. "What you didn't know is that I've spent over 20 years working to hold powerful institutions accountable. I've sat across from CEOs, senators, even generals. And yet, I've also stood in rooms where the people with the loudest voices were the least worth listening to." He took a step closer to the audience, his voice gaining weight. "Judgment is easy. Respect takes effort. And if you choose judgment over respect, you might just find yourself bowing to the very person you mocked." The words landed like stones in water, rippling through every corner of the hall. He let the silence stretch, then continued, softer now. "I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to remind you. How you treat the person you think is beneath you says more about you than it ever will about them. Jobs change, roles change, power shifts, but character follows you for life. Evelyn stepped forward then, her voice firm. As of this moment, Trevor Langston and his associates are terminated pending prosecution. A new compliance structure will be implemented immediately. And to Mr. Brooks, she turned toward him. On behalf of this company, I thank you for your integrity and your work. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger, until the room was filled with it. Elijah gave a small nod and gathered his papers. He didn't stay for the chatter afterward. As he walked back through the lobby, the same receptionist who had once smirked at him now rose from her seat. "I'm sorry," she murmured. He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw no trace of anger there, only a quiet, steady dignity. "Take it as a lesson," he said gently. "Can't pass it on." Outside, the day was bright, the street alive with movement. Elijah stepped into his SUV, the driver closing the door behind him. As they pulled away, he glanced out at the towering building shrinking in the distance. Somewhere inside, whispers would turn into conversations and conversations into change. And maybe, just maybe, someone would think twice before laughing at the next person who didn't fit their picture of important. For the viewers watching, Elijah's story is a reminder you can carry with you into every interaction. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, and never let arrogance blind you to respect. Life has a way of turning the tables when you least expect it. So, if you believe in justice, respect, and standing tall no matter what the world throws at you, subscribe now. Join us for more stories that prove character will always outshine power.